So let's talk a minute about the internal rate of return. The internal rate of return is a calculation that we use when we're doing projections on a potential multifamily investment, and it's something that helps investors understand what their overall return possibilities can be when they're looking at the overall potential of an investment from the time they put money in until the time they get it back, when there's either a refinance or the project is sold off. Most of the time, large companies will use internal rate of return to compare various investments to see, if one they've got one already that's let's say returning 6%. They have an opportunity to move that money into something else. They want to see if it's going to be a better investment, so they do a comparison by using the internal rate of return calculation. And the internal rate of return calculation is based off of the net present value, and it takes into account money flowing out and then money flowing back in. So you may have an investment where, let's say you're investing in a multifamily project, you're putting in $100,000, and each year you're getting back a rate of return off of that project. So let's say you put in $100,000. Year one, you might get $20,000 back. Year two, you might get $15,000 or $20,000 again. So if you look at those years, year one, year two, your internal rate of return very well may be a negative, because your initial investment was $100,000 and you haven't gotten that back yet. But without going over specifics of the calculation, the net present value will be calculated over the period of time your investment is active. So if we took $100,000 and put it in year one, and the investment is sold in year 5, and you got your $100,000 back plus whatever interest was earned in that year, you would take all of those years to figure out what your net present value is. And one of the things you have to do to figure it out, it's kind of a hit or miss calculation. Until you come up with a net present value of 0, you will have a rate that is your actual internal rate of return. Obviously, in situations like that, the higher the rate that you come back with, the better the investment. So if maybe you have an investment now that's getting you 6%, and you put this $100,000 somewhere else, and it's showing you an internal rate of return of 15%, that's obviously a better investment. That's where you would want to put your money. So again, that net present value over the years, you look for the point where it comes out to be 0, and you will get an interest rate based on that, and that's your internal rate of return. I'm going to give you an example of exactly what I'm talking about. So let's try to make a little more sense of this calculation. This is an example. I'm hoping it will further explain the calculation of internal rate of return. So what I'm doing here is I'm comparing the rate of, as an example, an investment we've got to what potentially I could get as a return on another investment. So here you see I have an example of 6% return on an investment. Now up in the corner here you could see I've identified this as the discount rate. Okay. So we've got the discount rate, or the rate of return for the net present value of 6%. And let's say I have an investment of $100,000. So that's cash flow out at the beginning of $100,000. And you see that on line 7. And in year one, we've made $10,000. Year two, $5,000. Year three is $2,500, and so on. On this side, we've got net present value. So the way this system is calculating that, you can see up here in our formula line that it's taking the cash amount. I don't want to change it. It's taking the cash amount, which is B8 in this particular line, and dividing that by 1 plus the discount rate, which is the 6%. So it's dividing it by 1.06, and then that's to the power of A8, which is 1. So if we go down to the line 11, which is year 4, it's $15,000 cash flow, but the net present value is $11,881, which is the B11, 15,000 divided by the discount rate, 1.06 to the power of 4. So if you multiply 1.06 times 1.06 times 1.06 times 1.06, you have that factor of the bottom number. All right, and that is 15,000 divided by that number you came up with here, and it will give you 11,881. So what we do here is we add all of these present value numbers up for this total, and the internal rate of return is a factor that it's like I said earlier, it's a trial and error type thing. You want to come up with 0 to find out what the actual internal rate of return is. So if we were to change this, now we're looking for a better rate of return than 6%. So if we change that to 8, we're getting closer. 8.1, we're getting closer. So if we go 8.35, that comes up to 0. And here is our actual internal rate of return, which is built into the Excel spreadsheets so that you don't have to keep doing a hit or miss. And this is the formula up here in the formula line. Now I could change this to any interest rate I want. All it is telling it to do is to keep trying different rates until you come up with 0. All right, so if I were to change it to 8%, it's still coming up, as you can see, to 8.35, which comes up to 0 with this calculation as well. So here we've got the net present value of the discount rate, which is 8.35 of B7 through B12, comes up to 0. So it's not an easy thing to explain, but as you see from the examples, you know, these are formulas that some genius, I guess you could call them, decided how to do this. So if I already had, again, I'm going to change this to 6%. If I already have an investment that's 6%, I can come down here and realize that I'm doing better with an internal rate of return. That's 8.35. We're looking for this net present value to come out to, as I said, to 0. So if I change again to 8.35, it does come out to 0. So that's my internal rate of return. Cash going out, all this cash coming in on a present value basis, total 0, so we know the rate of return is 8.35. I don't know if this has helped you. but you get a feel for the fact that you have to consider the entire timeline of your investment. So if you put $100,000 into a multifamily deal, each year each year, if you're getting a return, you add that cash in each year, and then find that present value as the years go by. And then in the last year, when the project is sold off or refinanced and you get your money back, that's more cash coming in. That's where you get your real internal rate of return. So I hope this helps a little bit. It's, for some people, it's not an easy concept to grasp. And you just have to have faith in the guys who figured out how to do all this stuff and set up the formulas. Uh, Large companies use this formula to determine their best investments, and this is what we try to show you when we have calculations that your cash on cash return as well as your internal rate of return are very important numbers for you. Okay, so again, I hope this has helped, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.